Hey, Pastor Paul here. Take a few minutes to consider a few topics today. George Santos, we're going to talk about him. Big box stores, why are they closing? And we'll talk a little bit about intersectionality, kind of dip our toe in that topic. And then a book review I've got for you as well. Well, welcome to Consider This with Pastor Paul Trimble. This is a podcast for those that call themselves Christians to consider the events and the issues of our day and how we should think about those things as Christians. And it's also for those that don't consider themselves Christians, but they want to understand why Christians believe what they believe and do what they do. It can be confusing if you're not a Christian. So I hope that you'll listen, even if you're not a Christian. So let's start off with George Santos. George Santos is a congressman in the House of Representatives from the great state of New York. I believe the Long Island area, Suffolk County comes to mind, parts of Suffolk County there. George Santos is about to be expelled from Congress by Congress itself. Usually someone is voted in or out by the people of their district. But George Santos, really from before he took office, I think he came into office in 2020, maybe it was 2022. But even before he took office, people realized that he had lied on his resume, if you will, on what he said he had accomplished, who he was, what he had done. Now, that doesn't seem like that big a deal. It's probably a deal to get voted out of office, but not expelled from Congress. But since that point, there's been investigations on ethics with George Santos, and apparently he has done some pretty shady things on there. At least that's what he's accused of, including using his campaign funds. It's not funny. It strikes me as funny that we wouldn't know because that's public record. He used it on personal expenses, including a website that you may or may not be familiar with. I hope you're not, called OnlyFans, which is apparently a pornographic website. Don't look it up. He used his campaign money for OnlyFans as well as other things in there. Now, here's the point with George Santos. Usually Congress wants to let the voters of the district decide if they want to vote him out. They want the people to speak with their votes. It's just so bad Congress is saying they've got to act. Now, this is why this is important. Right now, Congress is split fairly evenly down the middle between Republicans and Democrats. And whoever has the most in the House gets to pick the Speaker of the House. Mike Johnson, we talked about last week, is a great speaker. He's trying to wrangle the Republicans to get things passed, but usually it's against Republicans, against Democrats. So here's the deal. If they lose George Santos' seat, that narrow margin of victory is probably going to be picked up as a Democratic seat because the governor gets to pick, I believe, in New York, gets to pick the replacement for someone who doesn't finish their term. So she would probably pick a Democrat. It still wouldn't flip the balance, but it would be very, very close. So now here's the other reason I bring this up. As Christians, how should we think about this? Well, the guy I think should be voted out of Congress. Here's my thing, though. As Christians, I believe we should vote. We should research the topics, the issues of the day, research the candidates, and then vote according to what we feel like matches what God's word is. So if we look at, the issue of abortion, that's clear. That is the Bible is very clear that we are to protect life. If we look at a lot of things, the Bible speaks to issues, and we should, as Christians, vote according to what the Bible says, not what we want it to say, not what we think it should say, but what it actually says. Now, here's the problem that I have with Christians that vote, but have not researched the candidates or the issues. If you haven't researched the candidates or the issues, I don't think you should vote. I don't think you should just vote party lines. That's not good enough. Now, I'll make an exception. I will say if you know someone that has researched the issues, the candidates, and you feel like that they are solid, use them. I mean, vote the way they would vote. That's better than not voting. But what's worse is voting when you don't know those things yourself or you don't know anyone that has researched that. Hope that makes sense to you. Well, we'll keep our eye on George Santos. Sounds like a bad apple. The second thing I wanted to give us an update on is just on that Sam Altman. We talked about him last time. He was the CEO of OpenAI that was fired by the board about a week and a half ago. He spent the weekend trying to get his job back. It kind of came out of the blue. Well, a real twist to plot is he got his job back. He's the CEO, and the board is now gone. At least 3 of the 4 board members, and then Sam Altman got to pick that board, and then I think an additional 6 board members for that corporation. What happened apparently is the company, I believe, is about 770, close to 800 employees. Over 700 of the employees at OpenAI said, if you don't hire him back, we are going to bolt and follow Sam to Microsoft. The reason Microsoft is in play in this is Microsoft is a giant investor in OpenAI. They have spent literally billions in investment in OpenAI. So they had hired Sam, but now it's back. By the way, Elon Musk was an early supporter of Sam. For some reason, he's not, maybe he's at odds with Sam Altman for some reason. He's invested, I want to say $100 million in OpenAI. One more thing about OpenAI, I don't think I mentioned last time. It is a 501c3, or what we call a nonprofit. 501c3 simply refers to where in the Internal Revenue Code this little part of nonprofit is explained. Nonprofits are just what they say is nonprofit. So things like the Red Cross would be a nonprofit, or churches like I work at are nonprofits. Their goal is not to make a profit, but what's interesting about OpenAI is they are a nonprofit, but they have a subsidiary, a company that they control that is for profit, and that's where they sell their products and make money. So they're the ones that came out with ChatGPT. This whole OpenAI is going to be a company that we want to watch, and Sam Altman will be someone we want to watch. So let's talk about another topic. Consider this. Why are big box stores closing in several big cities? The most recent that we saw is Target, the big discount store, announced, I believe, 9 closings across several U.S. cities. And those cities all have something in common. They have high rates of crime, and specifically high rates of shoplifting at these big stores. In fact, that's what Target and several others have said, including CVS pharmacies. I believe they are closing in some of the same cities. Cities like Seattle, cities like New York, San Francisco, LA, you get the idea, where we've seen a huge increase in crime. Crime is just shooting through the roof in some of these. And you'd say, what's happening with this? Well, the answer is we are supposed to be a nation of laws. What that means is we've got a laws, and when someone breaks that, we have police that go after those people, then prosecutors that prosecute them, and then a jail system that we place those people in that are convicted of crimes. But what's happened in these big cities is they have not been enforcing the law. You remember a couple of years ago when we had a big push for defund the police. after the unfortunate murder of George Floyd by some bad apple police officers. We won't say that there are some bad apple police officers, because there are, but the vast majority are great women and men that are enforcing the law. And so it's puzzling to me in these big cities where, when the police do enforce the laws, the prosecutors are not prosecuting the crime. It's really unfortunate. And here's what's happening is these stores are just simply losing too much money. Where it used to be, what we joke and call the 5-finger discount, that people pick stuff up and walk out without paying. It's that, but it is really organized crime behind this that is propelling this forward. Not the big crime families per se that we saw in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even the 80s, that you make movies about. But we see organized crime really geared around social media and people being aligned and stealing this stuff and then fencing it online and selling it. These big box stores, we like to think that they have unending big pockets, but they have a very narrow margin of profitability. If they can't maintain that profitability, well, then they have to close. It's a simple formula. It's not hard math for them. Now, why bring this up? This is just another symptom of these cities becoming failed cities. We used to say failed states, like states or nations, failed nations, like Haiti is a failed nation. We are starting to see these cities failing, cities like Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco. What's happening is these inner cities where people, let's take the box stores or grocery stores, people that don't have the ability to drive to the suburbs and get their groceries, they're having to move out of the inner city. And corporations are seeing that. They're seeing closed houses, houses in decay. There's not enough workers. So corporations are moving out to cities and states like Tennessee. We're seeing places like Nashville grow, places like Dallas, Houston, Austin are starting to grow in Texas, Florida. But then big states like New York and California, they're literally shrinking in size. For the first time in my life, these states are shrinking in size where the other states are growing. Why? You go, well, it's affordability, it's all that. I think at the heart of it is where you have to start is you have to enforce the law. Now, the pushback against this is you go, well, Paul, we don't want to be a nation that just incarcerates everyone. Now, listen, I have a heart for those in prison. I actually go to prison and to jails and minister and pray with guys. And I've been to maximum security prisons here and in other countries. I don't want to just lock up everyone. But many times prisoners will tell you, especially those who have come to Christ, they came to Christ because they were stopped, because they did go to prison. They were taught that the world doesn't owe them a living. I think this is important that we have DAs, district attorneys, that start enforcing the laws, police officers. Listen, people in the inner city will tell you, and yes, I have talked to many, not all of them, but many will tell you. I would say most would tell you they want more policing so that they feel safe going to church or going to school or their job. They don't want to worry if their car is going to be broken into or their house or that they're shot. They want more police. Just today, I heard that there are stores in that neighborhood in Minneapolis where George Floyd was killed by those errant police officers. That was a tragedy. That the city is being sued by these stores for not enforcing the laws because the police and the city are staying away from that neighborhood. You remember all the riots in that neighborhood and things that were going, defund the police. Now those same stores that are there saying, you've got to come and give us police so we can operate, or we're going to have to close. They're losing so much money to shoplifting and just outright crime and robbery. Um, well, that's why we're talking about big box stores. All through the 90s, we saw crime drop because we prosecuted crime. We put police on the street. And I believe we need to hire more police officers. We need to pay them well, train them well, give them ongoing training so that we attract men and women that are great police officers with this. This is where a nation rises or falls is right here. Well, let me dip my toe in a big area. I don't want to just unpack just a little bit because this piece that we're going to talk about, intersectionality, is really a big piece of a much bigger piece, and that is how we relate to each other. Intersectionality is something that many Christians have fallen for because on the surface it sounds very good, but it's not. It comes from that term intersectionality was coined by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw back in 1989. I've watched this develop over the years, and it's developed far beyond what she first wrote about in her paper. But what she was talking about originally is, and why we call it intersectionality, is where someone that is oppressed with the type of oppression, a protected group, if you will, intersects with society. And so if you have someone, and I believe she was writing about African American women and how they face a special kind of racism and sexism, she would say the two intersections that they have is one, that they are African, and two, that they're a woman, that they face because of being African American, they face challenges, and then as a woman, they would face challenges. Well, now that's expanded to not just gender, not just race, but people with disabilities, people with socioeconomic, the poor challenges there. They would say sexual orientation, all of that. So you could literally have an intersection of all of those things. Let's say a African American woman. There's two that is also a lesbian. That's three who may, even though she is a lesbian, she may identify as a transsexual. There's four, and maybe did I say she's handicapped? Maybe that's five. Now I'm not making fun. I'm just saying that's where that would intersect. And so, why is this important? Well, you need to understand that people that propose intersectionality, most people are great people that propose it. They would see it as kind of a lens, if you will, to look and see this is where people are hurting. Now, as Christians, we want to help those who are hurting. We want to serve our brothers and sisters. We want to take care of people. But why is intersectionality bad? This is why. Because it doesn't actually try to solve any problems. Christians, we're called to care for the poor. We're called to care for those that have that there's been injustice done to them. But this actually prevents us from doing that, because instead of getting at the problems of, say, racism, we hate racism. We want to fight against it. We love people. Instead of fighting poverty, or instead of fighting any of these things, what we find is that we are running into this concept of intersectionality. Now, Paul, why is it so bad? Here's where it comes from. Back in the 1930s and the 1920s and the 1930s, this was a school of thought in Frankfurt, Germany. It's where the communists were. They were kicked out of Germany. It's the Frankfurt School. And what the Frankfurt School says is communism or Marxism said, look, the reason that we're poor is capitalism, and capitalists have all the money. And when they looked at the system, they said, we can't get ahead because the system is rigged against us. And so they said, if we can destroy the capitalistic system, then what we can do is then we'll be in charge. Everyone will be equal. That's Marxism. That's capitalism. By the way, it's been tried in many countries. Communism has killed millions, far more than any other issue communism has killed. How does that relate to intersectionality? Intersectionality says this: there is an oppressor, and then there is the oppressed. And so intersectionality measures how much you're oppressed. And it says, if we can destroy the system that keeps them oppressed, then they will be on top. The problem is that doesn't even let us address those issues of why those people are hurting anyway. So what we want to do is instead of intersectionality is we want to actually stand against racism. We want to actually look at what are the injustices people are facing. There are real injustices out there. We want to look at those and then look at the Bible and see, how do we address that? Now, unfortunately, a lot of things have been labeled with a social justice title, and they don't mean biblical issues there. They would be actually anti-Bible. And so we have to be careful. We'll look at that another time, that what we're talking about is taking care of the poor. We want to take care of the widows, the orphans. We want to make sure that there is a level playing field for this. But intersectionality is not designed to do that. All it's designed to do is to destroy the system of family, of church, of society. That's really what that's all about. We'll talk about this more. A quick update on Israel. We talked about the Israeli Hamas war, and that is ongoing. Right now, we're in day 7, I believe, of a temporary ceasefire where Israel is giving its prisoners of guys that attacked Palestinian Hamas terrorists that attacked. They're giving those guys back to Hamas in order to get some of the women and children. That's right, I said women and children, babies, pregnant women, older folks. They're releasing these hostages that Hamas took. This is not fair, but Israel is doing this. It's not fair to Israel. You got to understand, Israel is in a fight for its life. Israel wants to destroy the terrorists, Hamas. They want to live at peace with the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people, and specifically Hamas, they want to destroy Israel. Hamas's slogan, from the river to the sea, literally means they want to kill the 9 million Jewish people that are there. They want to get rid of the Jewish people. So we need to be praying for this. We need to be standing up for Israel on this. So we'll talk about this more soon. In fact, we'll talk about how intersectionality has actually influenced, all these young people that are marching in support of Hamas and saying, Israel, kill Israel. It's actually because of the system of intersectionality being taught over the last 30 years. They're saying, look, Israel is the oppressor, and Hamas and the Palestinians are the oppressed. And that's simply not true. Israel is not a colonizer. This is just simply not true. But these young people, instead of looking at the nuance of the issue like we did last time, they're just saying, throw out the oppressor, destroy the system. Well, we'll keep an eye on that stuff, and let's be praying for our brothers and sisters in both Israel and in the Gaza Strip. That's a dangerous situation. And quite frankly, it could blow up into World War III almost at any time. Well, let me give you a quick book review. I just finished a book that I recommend that Christians should read. This is one of those books that I believe every Christian, both the mature Christian and those that are just brand new in the faith, even you non-Christians will love this. It's called The 50 Most Important Bible Questions by Michael Rydelnik. Michael Rydelnik is a professor of Jewish studies and Bible at Moody Bible Institute. All three of my kids have gone to Moody. In fact, my youngest is at Moody right now in Chicago, and I know Michael personally. He is a great man of faith. He is a Hebrew himself, a Jewish man, and Dr. Rydelnik is just this wonderful professor. And what he did is he hosts a Bible open line with Dr. Rydelnik. He answers listeners' questions every Saturday morning on 200 stations across America. It's Moody Bible Radio. And so what he did is he took the most compelling questions, the 50 most compelling questions, not necessarily the most often asked, but the most compelling question. He answers those in this book. It's the same way I would answer these questions to a T. In fact, I'm recommending this book to everyone. So pick that book up. You can get it wherever you get Christian books at, christianbook.com. And I think Amazon has it. It's by Moody Publishers. He wrote that book recently, and I just want to get it in as many people's hands as possible. Let me tell you about another book that he didn't just write by himself. He's the general editor, and that is this book, the Moody Bible Commentary. It's put together by a number of great authors. If you're not familiar with a commentary, this is a book every Christian should have at least one of these. BB, my wife, is actually using this in her quiet time. I use this book quite a bit in preparing for my sermons, but it's not just for pastors. It's for any Christian that wants to study. If you're not familiar with how to use one of these, every Christian needs a Bible. This is a Bible. This one in particular is the ESV Study Bible, and it's like a commentary. It has the Bible text, and then down below it has, for instance, I'm in the book of Job here. It says, look here in the commentary part, it has chapter 40, verse 3 through 5. It explains what verse 3 through 5 is all about. So that's a great resource to have. This one is even a better thing to add to this one. What it does is the same thing. It doesn't have the Bible text. You'll notice how thick it is because it goes through each verse of the Bible and it says, here's what you need to know about each verse. The verses connected to that, who wrote it, why they wrote it, why does this fit where it does, what's the history behind it, all of that. So pick that thing up. It's not too expensive. That's a great Christmas present. So, well, last week at my church, Bent Tree, we celebrated Thankful Sunday. It is the last Sunday of November each time. I think it's the last. It's the Sunday after we celebrate Thanksgiving. I always get confused when Thanksgiving's going to be. So we just have more music that week that's geared around being thankful to God for all he's done for us. And it's really our kickoff into the Christmas season. So as we get ready to enter this Christmas season, I know I'm listening to Christmas music. I'm drinking eggnog already, thinking about that. I want us to remain thankful through this Christmas season because Jesus came, that he came to rescue us. The ultimate gift that has been given to us, that he came, he lived the perfect life. He died on the cross, taking the sins of all those who would believe, and then being raised from the dead, and then ascending back into heaven. This is an amazing gift. And one day we'll get to experience the rest of that gift when Jesus returns or when we as Christians die and go home to heaven. Well, thanks for joining me on this. Next time for on Consider This. We're going to look at Christians engaging in the public square. What can we do there? How can we be engaged in the public square? We're going to look at school choice. That's come up in a couple of states. We're going to touch base on the Russian-Ukrainian war. We'll take a look at that. We're going to look at what I think of as a sickness I've seen in so many churches in my day, and that's the sickness of complaining. People that are in churches that just complain. They play like it's a spiritual gift, and yet it hurts the church so bad. Well, thanks for joining me today. If you would like what I have done here, what I'm doing, subscribe, like this podcast, share it with your friends. I'm going to try to get better with the production, my thought process on it. I know I'm a little rusty. And if you'd like to ask me any questions that would help me, what you would like to know about, send them to me at my email, pastorpaultrimble@gmail.com. And to catch my current sermon series at Benttree or even older series, search Benttree Church on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts like Apple Podcast, or you can visit benttreechurch.com. Even better yet, if you live in the northern Colorado area, come and visit Benttree in person at either our 9 or 11 a.m. service. Well, blessings. I hope that you'll join me next time on Consider This with Pastor Paul Trimble.